Cool, it's recording. Last time we introduced ourselves, so we get to do that again.
You want to do that?
I'm Brooke.
Oh, I'm Esmeralda. I'm Yvette.
I'm Orlando.
I'm Alejandra.
It's like the level of like.
Excited? I'm pumped. Still waiting for this to go on so I could see it.
So who wants to start?
So this is...
Who was A? Just kind of want to go through down by the letters.
Oh, yeah.
That seemed to work well last time.
Definitely. Go with the A.
Are we doing like the
I think like the part we jigsawed.
jigsaw? Okay. And that was on... Right?
Yeah, I think the engagement one.
So some significant research findings on immigrant youth that I read was about how recent immigrants have more optimistic and positive attitudes about school and school authorities, and the amount of time that immigrants live in the United States is associated with declining health, attitude, and schooling outcomes, and with poor physical and psychological health. The more Americanized they become, the more likely they are to engage in risky behaviors such as substance abuse, unprotected sex, and delinquency. The U.S. nativity and long-term residents among the foreign-born increase English skills, but significantly lower grades. They lose their achievement drive. And then the capital they bring, meaning that the financial resources, social class, and educational background, psychological and physical health, and social support help their immigrant experience.
Yeah, I was pretty like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that the like longer they had like been in America, that like all of those things like their health would like decrease and all that, because I feel like we talk about it like America is so great and like all this stuff, like it's great stuff about America. So I was wondering if it talked about like why that happened.
I didn't read anything of why it happened, just like
Just happening.
yeah, just happened.
Does anybody have any ideas of why it might have happened?
Why?
Can you restate the question, please?
Yeah.
Like, you know how it talked, like she was talking about how like their overall health, like physical and some else, like health and all that stuff, like went down the longer they were in the U.S. Is that right? Am I saying that right? And like, I feel like that's very counterintuitive to what we say about the United States and the advantages of coming here. And
Well, I mean, sorry about it.
No.
Well, if you talk about health in the United States, we know that the United States is like top 3 of overweight, right, in the world, and that has nothing to do with the United States not having opportunity or not. It's just it has something to do with like how the United States kind of runs its business and its food business and fast food versus having more good grocery stores. Because if you notice, I did a paper back in high school where it mentioned a lot of like the poverty, I don't know how to explain it, low income areas, instead of having more parks, they have more fast food restaurants. So a lot of places won't even have a park where children can go and play, which is when you're talking about these immigrants coming in, they're not coming in having this abundance of cash, right? So they can't go into these areas where there's parks, there's nice areas like Bellingham. They're going into poverty, low income areas. So, I mean, mentioning that, I mean, that can be a reason, right? Sorry, Helen.
No, it's also just to add on to that, like bringing like the whole health and the fast food restaurants thing. Most of these families aren't eligible for like programs like food stamps or anything, and just knowing how healthy food and organic food is significantly more expensive than you like candy and all that junk food. Like I feel like maybe families would probably go to just get whatever you need probably from the dollar store, and it's not as healthy as you probably get it at a a local farm or something. So I feel like that also plays in a role. And so yeah, just to add on what you were saying about that.
Is it also about like the health insurance? They can't, if they're like they need a social security to have a good insurance. If not, I mean, they don't go to the doctors. So
When they have to pay a lot, so
right.
essentially they don't go, so
Right.
that could be one.
only reason I can think of for like risky behavior such as delinquency and substance abuse would be like their parents are not home a lot of the time. Like that's a large generalization, obviously, but also a lot of the parents are working like 10, 12-hour shifts, and without that attention personally at home, they go find it somewhere else. So,
Yeah, that's a good guess.
That's a very good guess. I feel like it just all depends on your living conditions. Like,
Right.
yeah, if parents not the house, then you are free to do whatever you want, and that freedom sooner or later will take you into the bad friends, and those bad friends will be like, so do these kind of things, you know, they're fun, you make money, whatever, you know. Instead of having that good role models, they're having these bad influences because the parents are not there. It's not the parents' fault. It's just
Because they're still trying to support their students.
and parents come home with a 12, 14-hour shift, and all they want to do is rest. It's not like they have time. Oh, come on, Jeff, let's go to the park. You know? Which other parents do have that privilege, and I feel like I don't know what I feel like. So.
What was the other thing you were talking about with, like,
The capital?
no, the longer like, when their English skills improve, their test scores go down? Is that what you were saying? Something about that?
Like the longer the residents, like the more better they are at their
Oh,
English.
okay.
But they're like, they have lower grades and they lose their achievement drive.
Huh. That would be so hard to know what to do with as a teacher. Because you would expect as your students' English got
Better,
their grades would get better.
Yeah.
But trying to keep the achievement and like their goals as high, and while they're improving their English. I wonder if that has I would think it had a lot to do with like feeling discouraged in the system while like trying to learn English, and probably like I know I talked last week about like students don't feel smart or capable in the classrooms, and then as their English gets better, they've just like lowered that self-esteem and what they think they're capable of.
Kind of on the note of that, I kind of talked about like the whole I guess my example could be a little bit different, but like I remember in middle school, I was in a normal English class, but I guess I was doing so well. My teacher was like really was talking to the counselor and to the honors English teacher to transfer me over to her class, and he was able to do that, but I was like mid-year, and so I was placed into this honors English class in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year I had to take this STAR reading so it could determine where I would be placed in high school, and when I took that test, I placed so low that they wanted to put me in the block class.
Is that like the
yeah.
below?
Yeah, like 2 English classes. So it'd be like 2
Okay.
classes,
Okay.
two periods out of the 7. And but my behavior in class and my grades and like anything that we did in class, I did so well in. But she wanted to place me in a block English class because of my test scores. And I feel like it's just so weird because I feel like by then I already had passed the proficiency English test that I have to take every year, and I felt pretty fluent in Spanish and English as well. And I mean, I already had felt like I lost some Spanish because I had just been taking English courses and stuff like that. And so I feel like some students, as you said, that you know, the longer they're here, they improve in English, but their academic success may vary. I don't know, and I feel like the test, which we'll probably talk about more later, has to do something with that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, totally.
Like the last discussion that we had. Yeah.
Any more thoughts on that one? Okay, so I'll do mine. My first question was about the Plyler versus Doe, and that was a Supreme Court case in 1982, and it ruled that schools could not deny access to education on the basis of immigration status, and that like anything that would unfairly punish kids where their parents were like illegal immigrants, and also that schools couldn't chill, was the terminology they used, which was scare undocumented students by like requiring documentation of vaccinations or anything like that, because there were some schools that were not technically saying you had to report your status, but there was like some documentation that you would have had to be legal. And then about like how that, even after that was ruled, it still really has an effect on like higher education. because students can, even though they can get into public education, they don't qualify for financial aid or anything like that without a social security number. And so even though students could get through like high school, there still wasn't opportunities to go on. Except for like, I don't know if you guys looked at those links at the bottom of the session 4. There were like a couple, there was like someplace in Georgia, because Georgia has some really strict rules against, and
like
then there's an institution in Georgia that's trying to help them. Yeah, Georgia has weird laws and policies that are really strict, and then there's this like Freedom School in Georgia that like helps work with undocumented students to try to help them get access to education. And then, there's also some statistics on migrant families. So there are 8 to 10 million undocumented people in the U.S. Latino, they're 94% of migrant worker population, and they earn on average $5,000 a year. There are 600,000 children that travel with migrant family. Migrant children experience more health issues because of like working conditions and lack of access to healthcare and stuff like that. They're least likely to be enrolled in school, and the dropout rate for migrant children after 6th grade is twice the national average, and most don't even make it till 8th grade, so it's not like they're dropping out like junior, senior year, it's like middle school. And then it talks about how late entry to school was really challenging for youth, because there's a lot of programs in place a lot of times in like elementary schools to help kids like learn English and adapt to the culture and stuff, but a lot of the time as like kids get older, there's less and less of those programs, and so and those kids need even more support, and so it's really hard to enter school late, and a lot of the time students aren't given credit for any education they received in their like country of origin, and so then they're trying to like make up credits and learn English and get up to content matter, all that stuff. So that's kind of what I did. Thoughts?
You guys have any questions?
I see here that you said on your thing that what kinds of programs would help make the transition easier for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of any programs, but I know there's one that's recently that I've known for a couple of years called the Migrant Education Program, and that helps with students that are behind in credits or something like that. It helps with that, with like school, like credit wise, and my brothers were in that program, and some of my friends as well when I was in high school. I did mention it in one of my posts when I don't remember what I was discussing, but I remember I mentioned it, but I feel like that's one of the programs that I've heard of that could help.
I remember reading that.
I don't know with the late entry. I do know a lot of kids that start late, like school late, because in the summers, my family and I, we go up to Linden and we stay in a camp that's provided by the farm company, Mayberry. And a lot of those kids are from like Texas, California, and they travel. They come like this past summer. It started in late May, and school was still going on. And I didn't go there until after I had finished my finals. But there was kids that already had 2 or 3 weeks there. They missed school because they need to come here and support their families. And some families stay until after the potato season is over, and that's like October, and then kids go back to Texas, then they have to like start school over there. Some transfer here, and then they transfer over there. It's just really it's hard for them. Like I know a couple of them. Like it's just really hard transition, and I'm not sure if they have like programs that help with that kind of stuff. But other than the one that I've heard of that I was in when I was in high school.
Yeah, I know a teacher I worked with like talked about how she had students when she worked at her old school. She had students that like were there for the very beginning and the very end of the year, and like every year that happened, they'd get like a really big group of students, and then all the classrooms would be overcrowded, and then they'd lose a bunch of them, and then they'd get them all back again, and like trying to get that contact with the schools that they were going to, like they tried to figure out what some of the things we're going to so they could try to like communicate with those teachers, but it got so complicated and no one was really supporting those students very well just because they were switching schools all the time.
That's really tough too, because the amount of students determines the amount of funding per district, and so depending on like the time which the students are counted. Like you could get an overestimate or an underestimate. Definitely probably more common an underestimate of the amount of students, and then when they actually show up, you don't have enough funds to provide for the students you are teaching.
Which going off a little bit off topic, which happens a lot in Eastern Washington in small little towns,
Oh yeah.
right? With the undocumented people,
Mm-hmm.
and they do the census, and they can't be in the census, but there's thousands and thousands of people that are not accounted for because they're not citizens. And so when these little towns of 5,000-7,000 people, get funded because they're 5,000-7,000 people, but in realistic numbers, there's like 14,000-13,000 people living. Like they're getting funded and they're receiving money to build schools for 7,000 people instead of 4. And so if it's really packed, and the education can probably fall through, right? Because there's not enough teachers for these students. And
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that in areas where there's a really high population.
Yeah. So where I'm from, it's like cherries. There's happy, grape. There's apple, peaches, pears. It's just a farm migrant. It's just, and this just brings up to what you just said. It could be very hard, and so it's a very large, like the community knows that, but a lot of people, a lot of families are undocumented, and you see them like working in the fields, but you just don't see that like in schools. Maybe the students, yes, but it's hard to, yeah. And then like just to add on to that, because it's like a small town and a small school, maybe the funding for that school is so much more different than a lot like a bigger school that I hear that are so big. Like
they're really big. Some schools are big.
Is it true that well, I overheard with the coworker that I have that one of her friends, she has her AA and like she's allowed to teach already in Eastern.
Oh yeah, and there's like a teacher shortage in Eastern Washington too. Like apparently they're desperate, and there's people that don't have their teaching degrees that are teaching. I've heard of some cases like that, and because there's a shortage of teachers over there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, with the Navy.
Yeah.
That's so underqualified.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know, it's like you need teachers, but also putting the least qualified teachers in schools that probably need.
Yeah, so they're taking volunteers. They're just.
So basically like us right now.
Yeah.
Yep. You could probably be over there teaching a class right now.
Well, no, I'm not qualified.
I don't know. Difficult.
I also with like the really high dropout rates, like that made me think about like those really cool videos we watched of the what's it called, the
Precious knowledge.
Yeah, the Mexican American studies.
Yeah.
Like I'd be interested in like the effect that had on like dropout rates there.
Apparently it was doing really well. Like students, even one of the students was like, yeah, I got A's and B's. They get excited to go tell their parents what they learned today. I heard it was going really well.
It was so cool. Those videos were so cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the statistics were. I'm sorry, I can't speak. But yeah, I heard it was doing really well. It was really doing an impact on the students.
I was so shocked that they ended that.
Yeah.
So shocked. Because I was like, of course people are like fighting against it because you change anything, and people are like, no, let's stick to the old way, but that they actually managed to like to end the program.
Arizona as a whole is kind of broken, so
but it's like, oh my gosh, every school teaches primarily one culture, like every school does. It's just typically like Eurocentric and whatever. But then this one, so that's why I was like, oh yeah, they won't actually get to end this. But then I was like, they did.
I didn't really go ahead
So
and
programs though. I'm still trying
do
to like
things
figure.
all over the place.
Go ahead.
Do it.
Do what?
Whatever you were gonna say.
Oh, do it. Do what? No, I'm still trying to like think of programs that will help these kids. I really don't know any. I know programs, but like programs that will help students already in, that will help them go to college, But like kids coming in fresh.
In my high school, we had like these migrant advocates that would help like these struggling kids, and like they would easily give them like fast packets just to like get a credit. They finish like a packet, and that's their credit. Like they don't have to go to class. They just have to do that packet and get it done like in a month or two, and that's their credit.
That's weird.
Those packets are huge.
Are
My
they?
brother
Okay.
had one because he broke his leg, and so he did a. But yeah, he would just do these really big packets, and he would just be there on the test and
Yeah.
just working on it. But yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was thinking about this, and I was like kind of curious. Like, I wish I could see like one of their lesson plans or something, or like I know I showed clips of what they were teaching and stuff, but like a paper, like a PDF file of what their lessons plans were saying, and like what was the goal and the target, and how would they, just to see. I thought I don't know if they have that online, but I think that would be pretty cool to take a look at.
That teacher seems so cool.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
only he was here in like fall of 2013, and I was like, why wasn't I here?
Yeah.
Bring him back.
Yeah. And the way, one of the videos that it showed when they were like reviewing the woven blankets, I was like, it's such a cool way, because you're mixing so many things together. You're not just looking at like, oh, we're going to learn how to make a blanket, because obviously that's not happening, but you get to see like the region from where it's from, and then the culture of those people compared to others, and you're like, so you have the whole literature component as well as history and maybe even geography, and it's like, yeah, we're mixing it all up, because that's what a lot of classes I've taken so far is like, make the most of your time. You're not going to stick to one subject when you're like teaching. You have to like integrate as much as you can.
Which is demanding more education on the educators as well. So I won't get into it. It's gotta be well qualified.
Okay, so for that same article, the things that my little part discussed were academic engagement within these students, and it went over 3 factors, and those were cognitive, behavioral, and relational engagement. So with cognitive, it's like make sure that they actually want to learn, make sure that you're teaching things that are going to get them involved and will be like, wow, I like what I'm learning. And then behavioral, it would be them participating more than just showing up to school and like sitting and taking notes. If they do that, like make sure that you're actively engaged. And I think a lot of these just like go hand in hand again, because the last one was relational, and for that one it's like have someone within the school that they can look up to, that they have that relationship developed with either their peers or a role model. And so I think the relational aspect will definitely affect the behavioral, because once they make that connection, then they're going to want to go to school, and if they want to go to school, then they're like, wow, I should probably pay attention to what's going on here, and that will help out.
That's so much tied into those videos we watched.
Yeah. Definitely. And that was interesting because, like, total, it was like, what, maybe 10 minutes of the 3 videos, and I was like, I just want to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just over.
And I feel like stuff like that makes me like excited about teaching, because those kids like actually cared about what they were learning about.
I don't know, don't take me on this, but I think you could borrow, I think the movie's here in the library, so you could probably check it out. So I remember I watched that outside of class one time, but I don't remember if I asked my professor or if I came to the library to check it out.
Movie night.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my part. And it was like that becoming the new thing, those 3 aspects, as opposed to like other 3 questions that were their form of engagement, which were like, is the student capable of doing this? Do they feel smart enough to do it? And another thing which like basically didn't work, because it's like, you're not gonna give students something that they're just capable of doing. Like, you have to make a balance of pushing them and encouraging them to expand what they do, but also not setting things so high up that they're just gonna give up and not complete it at all.
And with the relational thing, I was also thinking about in that school, like that awesome thing when they like had all the parents there and they were like feeding them all dinner and they were like, come meet my parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is so cool.
Come meet my parents.
Like, I've had very few high school teachers that would be like, yes, let me hug you and then introduce you to my mom. There's a few, but
Have like that special connection with your students. I think it's very important. Very, very important.
Did you guys ever take AVID?
Yes.
I did. I feel like that's a strong,
Oh yeah.
like a family type thing they can always go to.
I've heard about what it is, but I never I won't. My school didn't have that program, so what exactly does it do?
Are you asking us?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go or?
You can go.
Okay, so AVID is basically a program that gets students
Thinking about college.
thinking about college. So students that don't know what they want to do at first as freshmen, what now they have put it into like the middle schools now, which is really cool.
Yeah, because the middle school was that had it.
Yeah, because it gets them thinking early on, and it basically helps you progress through high school thinking about college. So you take time. It's like one period class, and you take time, and they give you knowledge about college. Like what kind of college you want to go to? Do you know how much it costs? Do you know what you need to get in? Do you know what kind of classes you need? And that they actually help you with applying to them and stuff. It's like other students, when I was taking it, other students in high school be like, dude, like I don't know what am I doing? You know, like I need help because my parents obviously I've never been to college. I need how do I apply? Where do I go? And AVID actually helps you, and counselors will come in and counsel you on classes.
Cool.
So it was like really helpful. Like in the beginning, I was like, man, why am I in this class? But at the end, like she says, you build a family, you build a connection with everybody, and it's awesome.
That's really cool.
Adding on to that, apart from helping you prep for college, they also have like these thing called tutorials. So like, I don't know how it was at your schools, but like at my school it was like twice a week. So every Tuesday and Thursday we would come in with like 3 questions or 2 questions of something that we had about another class. And based on that subject, we were split into groups, and you basically help each other solve your question. So like, when it's your turn, you go up on the board, you write down your question, and your classmates are not supposed to give you the answer. They're supposed to help you to get to the answer.
Oh, cool.
And of course, and they did have like tutors there, like most of them were college students. So we have a community college in my hometown, and so most of them were the students attending that community college, and they would come and they would help us out with like, so there would be like math, science, more general things.
History and science would be together.
Yeah.
Do you guys get the binders?
Binder checks?
Yeah, binder checks with like notes. You had to have a page
organized.
of notes for every class, every day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so and they tell you the Cornell note style. So basically we have like a line in the middle, and you put your questions, the topics, and then you write your content, and then you write a summary of what what it was about.
Okay.
So yeah, and then also we had like discussions. I remember we read articles, and as a class we discussed these articles and stuff, and then the teacher had some questions that we could start us off with, and then just kind of go off based on that.
It's an
Was it like an elective, or was it?
You had to like apply to get in. Like I remember I had to like
You had to
do
apply?
an interview. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
had to fill out the
interview.
paper, and then I had to do an interview, and then they would let you know.
They select you basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you have to also maintain a certain GPA.
Yeah. Certain
They
GPA,
also
like-
check your grades, like if you're getting a D, you probably get kicked out of that because you're
If
just
you don't
not.
pick it up at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know Cascade Middle School has AVID, but I've never been put in the AVID classroom, and my school at home didn't have it. So I was
It's
I
really-
know it's a college thing, but that's all I really knew
it's a
about it.
great thing.
That's really
It's a
cool.
great course.
And then most of the time you have, like I had it for all 4 years. I had almost all the same classmates in the AVID class for those 4 years. So you definitely, like Christy mentioned, you kind of feel like you have your little clique, little family there. And
That's cool.
Yeah. And you always, and just like even if they weren't in your other classes, you still have the connections and stuff and everything like that. So yeah.
So it's a great course, and at the same time you get involved with your teachers, and you feel like you're actually, like you said, like when the teacher cares about you as a student, you feel important. You feel like, man, like I want to go to class, like I want to do this, I want to make these teachers proud, And I feel that all plays in hand. It's all what all these articles are about, believe it or not.
So yeah, that's what it is.
Now I'm like, why does my school have AVID?
It's my turn, right?
C.
See me?
Who's that? I have a C. C, D.
I mean, I don't know how to do an E.
Alright. Just gotta find my first. Alright, so what basically my section talked about. Oh, there it is. I talked about how the importance of each individual student, there's how they view themselves and how other people view them. So I was talking about it's important to give these students the tools to actually value themselves as someone in life that can fulfill their goals. Someone in life that if they try, they can achieve, they can become someone in life. They can become a doctor, become a lawyer, a teacher, whatever they want to. And so basically my section talked about that and how when you take that away from the student, you're pretty much taking their identity, or you're taking their inspiration to move on in education. They're taking everything, because it talked about how a lot of these immigrants, especially Latinos, come into these schools and they feel like their identity is worthless. Sorry for the word, but they feel like it's worthless. They come into these different cultures and they see these different types of cultures, like American culture. They're like, well, my culture's not like that. I gotta like live up to these people, my friends, or the people around me, because I feel like they're making fun of me. I feel like they're talking behind me. I don't understand what they're saying, you know, which happens a lot of the case. And they, because of this, they feel like they don't need to go to school. They don't need to study. They don't need to do anything, and it kind of brings their self-esteem down, and they don't do anything in class, and that's why they kind of like shun away. But instead, if we as educators kind of like built this like welcoming area and well cultures, and kind of teach them that it's okay to be different, you know, just because you come from a different culture, which is India, England, Mexico, Guatemala, doesn't mean you're unqualified to be whoever you want to. So I think that's mostly what it talked about, self-identity, and how if a student doesn't have that, it messes up their early way of thinking and about school, and then later on they choose to drop out.
I think that kind of answers like a lot of the questions I was asking earlier about like what kind of things really help students, and even if it's not like a specific program, it feels like honoring students' identities and like caring about them as people seems really crucial in helping students be successful in school. Like that seems like a huge contributor.
Which also reminds me of the videos that we watched.
Just bring everybody.
Why did they get rid of this program? I'm very
You
confused.
just talk about every time 5 minutes on the videos. Just give me back. But pretty much, yeah. I think that's very important for a student, especially someone very young, to understand that, man, you know, I am worth something. Because I know when I was a kid, I felt like I wasn't like my other classmates. You know, like, man, I can't talk English like them. I'm getting D's and C's in my English class. Like, what's going on? Like, I felt report card would come and I would like hide it. You know, like, well, what you get? Everybody's all happy. You know, I'm just like, oh, you gotta be, you know,
Right.
make up a lie, and that carried on through middle school until like I realized, you know, I am capable of studying. I am capable of learning, getting high grades. And I guess that's what we have to do to the students, give them that motivation.
Yeah, and think about like even in those videos that we watched, like how much of an impact that had on like the high schoolers, and like if they had been in a school that had been honoring that part of them from the time they were in elementary school, like how cool that could have been for them. If you think about just like changing the system and how like they became so engaged in it and all that, and if that had been happening since the beginning, like what that could look like by the time a kid's graduating high school, if that's the kind of community they've been in from the time they entered school, and they've never felt like that part of them is like a bad part.
That'd be really cool. But that takes a lot of work. I feel like that will take a lot of work, and it's easy to talk about, but I feel like every teacher has to be on board for that, in order for that to work. Because there are teachers out there that be like, you know, they make you feel good. They give you like, oh, I'm here for you if you need anything. And then you call up your teachers if you're missing some assignments. I'll help you out. I'll talk to them. But there's other teachers that are just there to make money, or because that's what they got into back then. And
Yeah, they're stuck with doing.
yeah, you know.
I think it would take like it being important at a policy level. Like I don't think like you definitely can make an impact on a student's life in that one classroom. But I think if you really want to like actually have it on all the students, that takes like our educational policies and how we test students and all that being different. I think it takes more than just dedication of teachers, because also I think there's teachers that would totally like want their students to feel like their culture is important and all that, but just so many programs don't like train teachers on how to do that and what that looks like. And so if that's like the policy and the overarching things are that is what we're going to do as a country, then I think more teachers would just be trained in what that looks like. Because I know there's like, the reason I kind of decided to go was like the ESJ minor is because I took the Education 310 class, and I was like, there are so many issues with our system, but I have no idea what to do with it, because like I feel like there's just like problems, and I'm like, what do I do? And so like I talked to people about like what classes would let me talk about that more, and so I think it takes it being like important for the whole system to get on board with.
Let's just start from the inner and work yourself out.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did y'all have that connection with a teacher?
With
Like any teacher, like mine, for example, my Spanish teacher. She was actually a white woman, but she was just the sweetest thing, and she was the one who actually helped me go talk to my English teacher to help me bring my grade up because I had a D in her class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was just my go-to person whenever I needed anything apart from my ed teacher.
Mine was my choir teacher, and I had 3 different choir teachers in 4 years, but somehow all of them except like 2 of them I had like really close relationships with, and I still like I have their phone numbers and I text them and they'll like check in with me and all this stuff. And I felt like there was that because that was a really important thing to me, was like music and the arts and stuff, and so since they let that part of me be important, was like we had that closer relationship.
Very nice.
I mean, probably my 5th grade teacher. She's like so young when you think about it, but then I'm like, I don't really know any other teachers once I got to like junior high or high school. I only did 1 year of high school, and I kind of did Running Start, so I didn't have that time to form those connections, but definitely she was great. And I think a lot of it was also our classroom had its own cultural differences compared to her, 'cause she was like from the South, and probably the only non-white teacher I ever had in my entire like 13 years of school. And like I remember she'd say tile instead of towel because it was just like the way it was pronounced, and I was like, and we were taking a spelling test and we're like, what? And so like we had an entire talk about how like some things might be different and some things might be just pronounced differently or use different words for different things, and that's where we come from, and that's how like our identity was formed also.
Just spell it the way she said it. But you said it like that. That's funny. Did I eat? Or did,
Oh, it's a remote not to eat. That's me. Okay, so for my part, I was a little bit confused on like the context of the questions, but what I was supposed to talk about, well, one of is the Du Bois theory of double consciousness, which is, I'm going to use what it used here. It describes the feeling that you have more than one social identity, which makes it difficult to develop a sense of, oneself. And then there was this, so I just kind of talked more about that, and then one of the questions that was in my part was, what are the possible outcomes of youth who accept and don't accept the images being constructed about them? So I was confused on the context of the word images, so I just kind of took it as kind of like insinuating like, like there are people out there that think, just based on the color of your skin, if you're dark skinned, they just assume that you don't know how to speak English or something like that, or you're not smart enough. And then so what I just kind of reminded me of the whole thing with I think it was like session 2 when we talked about like the students and stuff like that. It's like I guess it depends on the student, and some, like the most recents, don't let it affect them what people think about them, and they just work really hard at having a better future. And there's others that more on the ones that have been here, like were either born here or grew up here. They're more likely to be affected of those images that that they feel like people see about them or something. Which also I talked more about, like what does how do migrant youth think they are viewed by Americans, and it kind of brings back to what Orlando was saying was about. You said it like feeling worthless or something. And that's kind of mentioned the word inferior, or and just things like that. And so all of that kind of led to like how can teachers install a sense of hope in these students, and then what is meant by bicultural and transcultural. And so I watched that video. I don't know if you guys didn't see that video of the third culture kids. I just brought that up. I talked a little bit about the press knowledge, about, just, I feel like a sense of hope, like doing what the professors did, or teachers in the videos, is like providing that safe space, that loving space for students to feel comfortable in expressing themselves and feel like, just that special connection, like when the teacher said that, he would like sing and dance and like make people laugh, because he mentioned like the students with the harder shells, so I just talked about that, and yeah, so that was basically that was it for that part. Any
Which
questions?
brings me back to
Yes.
why did we get rid of that program in Arizona?
Put that as a muddy question.
We don't even know how to put a time on that. We'd just be like, after every single discussion, why?
Yeah, how many minutes do we have?
We're on the 41.
Okay.
Cool discussion.
So you guys want to move on, ask questions, or talk about different topic?
And we can talk about the questions about the, since we brought up that program so many times, we can just kind of talk about what we thought about those questions.
For the precious knowledge? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll pull out.
Yeah, sure.
One thing I did think was like even cooler than the program itself was that it was open to everyone.
Oh yeah.
So that's why it was frustrating watching that last video of being like, we're just being separated even more by race as we put these classes into the system, and it's like they are not solely for Mexican American students. They are offered for everyone, and anyone would benefit from learning more.
Have any of you guys taken the American Culture Studies?
I've taken the American Indian experience and the Asian American experience.
I'm saying that now, so like watching those videos, it kind of like, oh, it's like what I'm learning now that I never learned before. Like, it's very interesting.
Definitely. I'm glad that those classes are offered here.
Isn't that free then? Those classes?
They're dual, so like you
Oh,
can
okay.
enroll as a normal person, but there's a regular normal person. But there's also a bunch of Fairhaven students in there as well.
Yeah.
The testing is just different depending on who you are.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I see.
So I wonder, like, cause my minor's through Fairhaven, but my major's not. So I wonder if I enrolled in it, if I would be enrolled as a Fairhaven student, or as
Maybe,
a
yeah.
not regular student.
What were the questions?
So the first one is, what is the content of the Tucson High School's Mexican American Studies program? How does it reflect culturally relevant pedagogy?
Wait, that was the first question?
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer that question?
I feel like it covered all the same subjects as other things. They just used a different things to teach it. It's not like they just still did history and they still did literature and all that. They just used different stuff. And stuff that was actually like relevant to the students' lives.
Can you read the quote that she put in the bottom of what the?
Oh yeah. It says the next step for positing? I don't know. Effective pedagogical practice is a theoretical model that not only addresses student achievement, but also helps students to accept and affirm their cultural identity while developing critical perspectives that challenge inequities that schools and other institutions perpetuate. I term this pedagogy culturally relevant pedagogy.
I don't know what pedagogy is.
Yeah, it's kind of like the thinking behind your teaching. So kind of like the philosophy of your teaching. So there's like different types of pedagogy and like how you should teach. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the culture relevant pedagogy would be like things like, I don't know, we know that students learn by relating new content to what they already know, and so if students, like if you're relating all of your content to the students' culture, and it seems relevant to their lives, and they're going to absorb that a lot better and remember it a lot more because they can relate it to what they already know instead of it just being this like new piece of knowledge that they're like, I don't know where I would use this. This doesn't relate to anything I know, but here's this random thing.
Learn it.
Yeah.
Like the exam. Yeah.
The next question was, how did the students become more engaged in their classes? What changed for them? How did the classroom community promote critical thinking?
They say like he taught them how to express themselves in their class, just laughing and having fun with the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also dancing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Making it fun for them.
So it was so cool, and they were like, one of the girls was like talking about how she for the first time felt like able to express her like opinion and stuff like that, and her past classes hadn't made her feel like capable of doing that. She really like empowered her to share her own thoughts, which I thought was really cool.
And then they also, I think, also helped with reading novels and things like that about people from their culture. So I absolutely love when I read novels and things like this. But I love when when I took 352, which is Latin American culture for Spanish. I just loved that class. It was the readings were awesome. So that helps, I think, to be more engaged.
Were you gonna say something, Orlando?
I was, but I kind of just stopped. It's fine. Is there anything else we can talk about?
There's one more question.
One more question.
Says, in what ways can you argue for the importance of learning? Whoops, I'm starting a video. Pause. Okay. In what way can you argue for the importance of learning one's cultural heritage? What are some practical, intelligent responses you can make to the Arizona legislature? I think what I said for arguments to Arizona's legislature is what I was saying earlier about all schools are teaching primarily one culture, and so the school's just teaching a different one, but it's not like other schools are incorporating all different cultures. So to say it's okay for most schools to teach a very like Eurocentric curriculum, and it's not okay for schools to teach any other centric curriculum, it's wrong. Yeah.
I get you.
It just deprives a lot of students as well, because the way he was saying it was like, oh, we were doing just fine and there was no race involved. And that's the thing, like, a lot of people define whiteness as the absence of race, when really you're doing your heritage a disservice as well, because there's so much to go off of, and that's complicated though, because a lot of people no longer consider themselves anything but American, instead of being like, oh yeah, my great grandma's like from France or something. And so there's a lot that can be learned for any individual. And so I also said that, and just by his response, there's fear, and that just kind of demonstrates the fragility of like how he feels against other cultures.
In the movie, I don't know, hopefully I don't spoil it, but he goes and visits the classroom, and they were in the class did really well. I don't know what, I just didn't understand, why, all those things, like, I didn't see any picture apparently of, like, the presidents or something of, like, people that, I don't know, it was just upsetting. But it's a good movie, just watch it.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks, bye.
Bye. Hasta luego. 49, stop at 50.
49.